Hello and welcome to the virtual lesson on Time to Know's Reading 2 program. Today I'm going to focus on the pedagogy of the program and also give you some teaching tips for Reading 2. Reading 2 program is a phonics-based program because research has shown us that this is the best way for teaching reading. So we're starting off on the home page of Time to Know, and the first place that I'm going to take you is to the table of contents, so you can get a general view of the Reading 2 program. I'm moving over to Kitahe, grade 5, and the first part of the program is the reading, the second part is the themes, and you can see the program focuses on the diphthongs, the digraphs, and the R-controlled vowels. And this is the order in which Time to Know does their Reading 2, E, E, S, H, O, O, and so on. And you can see it goes in clusters and groups, and I'll come back and explain that, because I want to take you all the way down to the end, to the information, and show you that there is a lot of background information that you can pick and choose and use whatever you want. And if we're talking about the Reading 2 program, there is wonderful information that's worth reading on pronunciation and speaking. And over here, there's a teacher's manual on reading stage 2, which will give you a lot of information in detail of how to teach each lesson, what is in each lesson, and the stories that go with it. Every kind of information that you could possibly want to find on the Reading 2 program. So I'm going to go back to the planning. And I'm going to show you that I have chosen the third group of word clusters or letter clusters, C, H, A, Y, and T, H. And every cluster follows the same pattern. At the end, there is an assessment, and there's also the option of a reteaching lesson. And I'm going to focus on the AY cluster. I'm going to do this in real-time classroom management, so I'm going to move over to what we call Nihul Shiur. And here I have my first lesson on the word drills. The lessons all follow the same pattern. There's the frontal part, which we call engage, and 2 practice parts or learning activities, LAs, that the students do independently. I'll also point out to you at the end of each lesson, there is a homework page that the students can do, and there is also a wonderful workbook that goes with the Reading 2 program. So I'm going to start off with the engage, and I'm going to say to you at a quick glance, if you look at the time, which is an estimate time for each AI here, for each activity item, you'll see that just to do the engage is going to take the whole lesson, which you don't want. You want this to be about 10, 12, maximum 15 minutes, so you have to make your choices. And I've looked at all the possibilities, and I would recommend to do the first 4 AIs, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, because the build words and the sight words come into word drills number 2, which is the next lesson. So let's start off with the animation. In Time to Know, we use a lot of animations for teaching, and what I recommend for you to do is before any animation, decide on your pre-watching questions. What questions are you going to give your students so that they're focusing on something while they are watching the animation? And here I would recommend you to ask the students to listen carefully and to be able to tell you at the end what sound they learned, how it is written, and also new words with that sound. Just a few seconds of the animation that I'm going to show you. I'm not making it bigger.
A Y A gray.
Okay, I'm stopping here. Of course, they learn other words with A, Y, and also those words are then used in a sentence. So the second AI, the let's read, teachers tend to skip over this. I'm not too sure what the reason is, and I highly recommend that you use this. even though there's a volume button, there is no sound here because the idea is for the students to read. It's decoding or mechanical reading, and what you need to do is to let it run and pause when there is a word and get the students to practice their reading, not only by asking individual students to read, but getting them to read as a class, going on, letting them read the words. You'll notice that there are words that are not necessarily in their vocabulary, but here the emphasis is on the decoding, on the mechanics, and they don't have to know the meaning, but you can explain the meanings if you want. Match the words is also essential to do, because here the students are going to meet the word families that we have chosen as part of our AY words. What I suggest you to do is first get the students to read the words. This is really good practice for them. And then they can try and match the words up with the picture. And then each time you can listen and let them check by listening to the sound. Oops, unmute.
Play.
Okay, and then of course when this is all done, then the students together with you will check the work. And this is a great activity because in a way it replaces the flashcards that we use or used to use in some instances. The last AI is an important one to do because it has small examples of the activities that the students are going to do over here in the practice 1 and 2. And this is prepares them so they can work independently. I just want to come back here to the match the words. And what I would recommend if you're in Tichnun in planning is to copy and paste this and to put it into the practice 1 activity and put it at the end of the lesson. When you copy and paste it in, it may come somewhere here near the beginning. Just simply drag it till you see the blue line and put it here. And not only do you want the students to do it, but you also want them to copy the words so that they've got the AY word families in their notebooks. This, as I will show you later on, is really, really important for their writing. Of course, in Time to Know, we also believe in blended learning, not only work in the computers, but also work in the workbooks and in the notebooks. So now I'm moving on to the second lesson. As we can see here, word drills 2. And if we look at the engage, you've got the sight words. There are more than there were in the first lesson, but now it's important to do the sight words. I'll just quickly show you that. These sight words you can use using the sound, the volume,
4.
and you can use the sentences, and you can use the sound here. You have a lot of options, but don't spend too much time on it because the emphasis here is making sure that they know the meanings of the sight words. The next activity we have is the build the words. This is an activity that a lot of teachers don't do either, but it's really a worthwhile activity to do, and it ties up with the word cards that are attached to the same activity in the first lesson. And what you're supposed to do is print out the word cards and let the children have the letter cards or the sound cluster cards, and then they can work in pairs, have this, the cards out on the table, and build the words as you hear them.
Charm.
Okay, and then they have to actually physically take the letters and build up the words. This does take a lot of time, so you can decide whether this is something that you want to do, but it is recommended. The next activity is vocabulary words, and this is done in a really, really great way because they read the word, they see it, we read the word, we see the word, and we also have the picture that goes with it. So you don't have to translate, which teachers tend to do. You can use the illustrations to make sure that the students understand the meaning. Great way of teaching vocabulary. The last AI, the activity, is the introduction of the story. The emphasis of the story is actually in the third lesson, but here it's introduced the first time. And the way I see it is that it's important for the students just to get the main idea of the story so that they understand it. And what I would recommend for you to do is to first of all look through the story using the pictures, and this you can do really quickly so that the students can already try and guess and work out what the story is going to be about. And then You can go back and read the story just as I said for main idea, not spending too much time because you will get the story again in the third lesson. And you can also use the narration, or the teacher can read it herself, but the narration is really nicely done. I'll show you a part of it as an example.
It is 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning in May. The twins, Will and Wendy, are wide awake. Today is a holiday, and it's farm day for their family. The farm is a long drive away from home. They cannot go by subway. The children always like to visit the farm.
So there you have an idea of reading with the narration for main idea, but as I said before, the teacher can read it if she prefers to. The practice activities, what I want to point out over here is you have your writing activities. And as I explained to you in the previous lesson, if the students have written down the word family words in their notebooks, they can refer to them if they need scaffolding or support for when they do the writing activities. And if you imagine all the sounds that have gone before, the E, E, S, H, O, O, and so on, and the students have them written in their notebooks, when they do the writing and the spelling, this is going to help them. And this is really important for those students who need it. So we're finally going on to the third lesson, which, as you can see, is called the story lesson, AY story lesson. And again, the same format of engage, practice, practice, and your homework. If we look at engage, here are the same sight words that you had in the previous lesson. So you just need to go through them really, really quickly and reviewing the vocabulary words. And then we come to the story. And this is where you need to spend a little bit of time, because you are to some extent checking the understanding. But what's really important is that you are listening to the students read. Okay, and here it's important for you to establish a way that you are going to read it together with the students to make sure that the students have a chance to read and that you're working on the mechanics and the decoding and a little bit of reading comprehension. The reason why I'm not emphasizing the reading comprehension so much at this stage is because the students are going to get, I'm jumping to practice 2, story activities 1 and 2, they are going to get the reading comprehension over here. I'm going to actually go back to practice 1 because over here the students are working independently and here they are getting the story. And what I would really recommend in order to get the most out of this aspect of the program is to ensure that the children read on their own. They have their headphones, and each child is going to be reading independently. That's the idea here. You can decide whether you want them to read with the narration or not. That's your choice. And I can imagine you're already saying, oh, but there's going to be a lot of noise and the children are all going to be reading. But there are a couple of, besides something that I think is going to be worthwhile, not everybody works at the same pace, so not everybody will be reading at the same time. And yes, you do have to teach them that when they are reading, they need to read quietly. And what you can do as a teacher is to go around to the students that you need to and listen to them reading. And I think that this is something worthwhile doing. Of course, I would highly recommend that they practice the reading at home, either via the DTP or by having the actual story from the workbook or printed out. Go to practice 2. As I said to you before, the story activities 1 and 2, check the students' comprehension. And here they have quite a high level dictation, and hopefully the writing that you have done in the notebooks is going to help those students with that. And of course, ending off with the memory game. So as I said earlier on, the AY is just an example because all the lessons follow the same pattern. And I really hope that this has been something worthwhile for you and that you've been able to pick up some tips on how you can use our Reading2 program. So thank you very much for being with us, and goodbye.
Yeah.